spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.
Welcome, everybody, live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on AchieveRadio.com. Happy first Monday in April of 2018. April 2nd is when we're recording this show live, although it will be in our archives for perpetuity, and you can probably listen to it at any time. But whenever you're listening to it, we welcome you to the show. So grateful that you're with us again this evening, and so thrilled as we continue our Doctor to Doctor series. Dr. Dean conversing with so many different great minds who are very committed to natural health and natural wellness and bringing the most important and critical, clear, concise information to the public so that they can make their own choices and be their own doctor. And we know that Dr. Dean has so much experience doing this, as she's been doing for so many years. I want to read just a real quick testimonial that I just got in today that goes to the point that we're going to be talking about this evening. She says, this is from Mary Jane. She says, I was on PPIs, which is proton pump inhibitors, for 21 years, 14 of those on a double dose. I have serious low tissue magnesium symptoms that were missed by many doctors I saw after stopping the PPI 3 years ago, including heart palpitations, insomnia, muscle cramps, and a really aggressive and irritable mood. I also have a hard time absorbing any type of magnesium now. I started Remag just 7 weeks ago, and I feel so much better. And here comes the punchline, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. Dean, for saving my life and my marriage, right? I had to do it all on my own. Not a single doctor understood the connection between my many symptoms and low magnesium, including my cardiologist, my endocrinologist, and a GI specialist at the Cleveland Clinic. I was told they were also told they did not know how to raise my magnesium levels. I felt like they were just going to leave me to die. This is truly a public health crisis. I had the best insurance and access to all top doctors, and they all missed it and still don't understand what I'm talking about. My very first dose of Remag was profound. Every muscle in my body relaxed finally. And this is what we're talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen, with our guest, Dr. Andrew Saul, PhD, who has joined us. Dr. Dean, best known for his work as the editor-in-chief of the peer-reviewed Orthomolecular Medical News Service. He's been on the faculty of the State University of New York for 9 years and has taught nutrition, health science, and cell biology at the college level. He's also traveled all over the world. He was inducted into the Orthomolecular Medicine Hall of Fame in 2013. He has been awarded the Citizens for Health Outstanding Health Freedom Activist Award, which is quite an accomplishment, and was named one of 7 natural health pioneers by Psychology Today and is featured in the movie FoodMatters. And he also has his own website, which is called Doctor Yourself. And he's joining us this evening along with Dr. Dean to talk about how you can take charge of your health and also be your own doctor, be your own health advocate. So first of all, let's welcome this evening Dr. Carolyn Dean.
I'm waiting for the yay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have my yays. Hold on. Well, go ahead. Hello, Carolyn. I'll get him there.
Oh, hi, Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Thank you. And it's a great introduction for Andrew. And I was wondering, when did I first meet him? And I think it was up at in Canada at Orthomolecular Medical Conferences. And he's such a sweet man. I actually thought he was a Canadian. So I was
oh, wow.
yes. But it seems like he is an American from all his credentials. So that's enough for me. We'll take it away and introduce Andrew to the callers and get on with it.
Okay, very good. And I've got to find him, Andrew. Could you raise your hand by hitting *5 on our keypad here this evening? If you could just hit *5 on your keypad, because I'm not sure which one of these callers is Andrew. You've got to hit *5. There he is. Okay, very good. I had 3. Wonderful. Good evening. I had 3 phone callers from Rochester. Welcome. Good evening.
Well, good evening, and thank you for that very kind and somewhat strange introduction, Carolyn. I appreciate that.
Right.
Now, of course,
you must be a Canadian, yes.
Well, I'm as close to being Canadian as you can get and still be an American, because I grew up in Rochester, which is right on the border of Lake Ontario, and on a clear day, you can almost see the Toronto skyline. So I'm pretty much as close as makes no difference to being Canadian, but it's fun being an American as well. There's never a dull moment in Washington.
Yes, very good. Okay, well, we're just so glad to have you here, and we have questions lined up and callers lined up. But I'll let Ginny take it away, because she wants to ask you how you got where you are.
And let's just start with that. How did you get where you are? That was an easy intro, Carolyn. Give us a little bit of your background. And yeah.
That's a very good question indeed. The single most important reason I'm where I am is that I had no choice. I had my first child when I was 22. At the time, that didn't seem very young, but now looking back for 40-some years after that, it does seem rather young to me. But I remember when that little boy was put in my arms and they said, "Here, Dad," and I looked down at this little creature and I realized I was responsible for this little person's health and well-being. And the doctors that we went to as dutiful parents just didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know anything about nutrition. They wanted to give shots. They wanted the child on formula. They wanted to give more shots. They paid no attention to nutrition. And it occurred to me that I had better know a lot. Now, I had some book learning up until that point, but it was having a child and then another one 2 years later that really put me on the road to natural health, because it's the only way to go. You may remember in the wonderful movie Star Trek IV that Dr. Leonard McCoy pleads with Captain Kirk to make sure that Ensign Chekhov is not given medical treatment when they've gone back in time. It's the old Star Trek ploy. And Bones actually says to Kirk, "Jim, you can't leave him in the hands of 20th century medicine." That's just exactly right. Only in my case, it was real. In 1977, my little boy would have been in the hands of 20th century medicine. When he was born, the first thing they did was to put him on formula and give him shots. And he was getting a fever. He was getting flushed and red, and he was all dry and miserable and unhappy and crying. And my wife was given more shots, and she was given medication, and she was recovering from the delivery, which, of course, is a big task in itself. And, of course, they had insult to injury. They do all that other stuff to her. So she was getting a fever, and she was getting sick. Now, remember, I'm 22. You got to keep this in mind. And I'm looking at this situation, and I realized instinctively I had to get them out of the hospital. I didn't know what to do, but I knew that nothing would be better than what was being done to them. So, literally, in the middle of a driving snowstorm, it was like the ice flow scene from Uncle Tom's Cabin. I mean, it was so funny because it was a driving snowstorm, and I went there and I pulled them out of the hospital against the doctor's orders and bundled them up in blankets in the car and went home through this blizzard. And the moment they got fresh air and out of the hospital, and the moment they got home and had real food and vitamins, they, of course, recovered. Now, my son is a big, strapping, strong lawyer today, and, of course, the nation needs more lawyers. At least my boy is a good one. And we have my daughter, who's Helen Saul, and Helen's active in natural healing and is a big fan of Dr. Dean. In fact, Helen looks up to Carolyn, and Carolyn's very graciously written an introduction for one of Helen's books. So we're all one big natural, healing, self-reliant family. Now I even get to see my grandchildren juicing, drinking vegetable juices and taking their vitamins. And this is really how I got into it. Some of it was book learning, but most of it was the way you and I and all your listeners come into this. We come into it because we have to. We tried to be pious patients, as Dr. Abram Hoffer used to say. We've tried to do the medical system. We'd love to have drugs work, but they don't. If they work at all, they don't work for long, and if they work at all, there's terrible side effects and dangers. We would love to be able to just get those immunizations and be set, but that's not the way it plays out. In California and in Westchester County near New York City, there have been 2 major whooping cough epidemics, and 85% of those getting whooping cough were vaccinated. Now, obviously, something's wrong, and this is what we as people, as parents, saw, and we did something about it. And what we did was we said no to drugs. We said yes to supplements. That's an idea that some people still think is a little bit out there. But the bottom line is it works. It just works. It works better. It's safer. It's cheaper. And you can do it right in your own household. And that is a terrible threat to the medical, pharmaceutical, political industry. Because if we actually do this ourselves, the power base shifts to the people.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. And I was wondering, too, now I understand your choices for your family, but how did you get into such a powerful advocacy position? Where did your thing kind of turned into that road?
Well, my father said I started talking early and have never shut up since. So I suppose, I guess it was inevitable. I think what it really is that I'm genuinely upset about unnecessary suffering. Life is hard enough without making it worse. You know, giving birth, I'm reliably informed, is not very comfortable. And dying leaves sadness. Even in the best death possible, it still leaves the normal grieving process and the sense of loss. We get older, we have illnesses, we have taxes, we have traffic, we have responsibilities, we get tired. There's so many things in our lives that are hard to do. The last thing I want to do, is to make things worse. And now with more and more people being overweight, more and more people taking medication, at younger and younger ages, they're overweight and taking medication. More and more drugs. The average elderly person is taking at least 5 drugs a day. I've seen estimates as high as 15. This is not good. So how can you not be passionate about this? How can you not speak out when you see people suffering unnecessarily? That's something we can do something about. And the one thing I like to tell people is you live in this case, the United States, or whether it's Canada, or whatever the country is you're in or listening from, you have the right to remain sick. Or you can get mad as a son of a gun and you don't have to take it anymore. You just don't have to play. You don't have to wait in line for your drug, for your shot, and for your terminal disease. You don't have to do it. One of the few free choices we have every day is what we will or will not eat, whether we will or will not exercise, whether we will or will not take supplements. These are free choices, and everybody has them. And even people that can barely move can still do isometrics. Even people that have very little money can still eat good, inexpensive foods. Even people who think they can't afford supplements are going to pay more if they don't take them. This is something that everybody everywhere knows is true. And that's why the majority of Americans are now taking supplements. And estimates are that among physicians, about 3/4 of all American doctors are taking supplements. Now, they're not going to go public with that, are they? But I will.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And what about, you mentioned earlier, too, in And I do have a question about that on the advocacy. I think I'll ask that first on the advocacy part because, I talk to a lot of people through our customer service, and they just get overwhelmed. They get overwhelmed and they get really discouraged. First of all, they're not sure how to gauge an appropriate source of information because the Internet is just glutting them, so much. And then the second thing is they're not sure who they should believe. Why can't they believe their doctor? What do you think about that?
Well, that's the very reason I put up the Doctor Yourself website close to 20 years ago. It seemed to me, even back then, that the information superhighway was really the information landfill. And it was very difficult for people to sort this out. And I would look through, and I myself, with the experience that I had, my own experience, my own eyes, my own hands, I would still look through and find all this contradictory and confusing material, and you have to start believing it because there's so much of it, and it's what I would call official misinformation. You've got politicians, reporters, governmental people, pharmaceutical executives, and pharmaceutically allied physicians who are making money and telling you stuff that helps them make more money, and that's just not right. So we have to sort that out. And at dryourself.com, which is a free website, it's a non-commercial website, and it's a peer-reviewed website. People can go there and search very easily at the website, and they'll find all kinds of articles. There's just hundreds of them with thousands of scientific references to back them up. Material by Dr. Abram Hoffer, who was my personal mentor, the wonderful Canadian psychiatrist and leader of orthomolecular medicine. There's material there by Dr. William Kaufman, who was using niacinamide, vitamin B3, to cure osteo and rheumatoid arthritis back in the 1940s. There's work by Frederick Robert Klenner and Robert Cathcart, both medical doctors, who used huge amounts of vitamin C as an antiviral and an antitoxin, an antihistamine. There's material there by Dr. Max Gerson. There's material by all kinds of physicians, Dr. Hugh Reardon, and all of this is easily searchable. So I have put up a website that I think takes the puffery out of it, and I hope takes some of the confusion out of it. I've also written a number of books, 2 as sole author. I wrote 4 books with Dr. Abram Hoffer, I'm very happy to say, and then I've edited about 20 others. So this has given me a chance to meet and learn from people who are really smart. And the one thing I would like to do is to offer what I've learned from really smart people to folks that are kind of confuddled. And that's the whole point of dryourself.com. And that's why FoodMatters, the movie, was so helpful because that reached a lot of people. And then after that, my team produced our own movie, which is called That Vitamin Movie, the world's first feature film entirely about megavitamin therapy. And That Vitamin Movie has been seen by well over 1 million people now. I do some online courses, and also I'm the editor of the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service. Dr. Dean, very kindly, has been on our editorial review board for years, almost since inception, some 14 years ago. The Orthomolecular Medicine News Service is free by email to anyone. You can sign up at my website, and it's basically a news feed. We put the news out there that the news media won't print. In other words, we have the stuff that shows that vitamins and minerals actually cure disease. We're not saying it needs more research and it's promising. We're saying, here's the research. We've known this for 55 years.
Right.
The reason I can laugh at this is because I love my work so much. And the one thing you have to avoid is taking this too seriously, because the other side wants you to get upset. They want you to waste time arguing and defending yourself, and I just won't do that anymore. I follow Will Rogers' adage, the great American humorist, the cowboy philosopher from Oklahoma. Will Rogers said, men's minds are not changed through argument, but by observation. And the bottom line is, if it works, You can't fool people. Lincoln was right. You can fool some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And the testimonial letters that you get and Carolyn gets and I get, all of this shows that individuals, one at a time, are realizing they have a way out. And I laugh because I'm happy about it. Nothing makes my day like somebody writing to me and say, yeah, I used to be an alcoholic. Or somebody who was in a wheelchair because of multiple sclerosis, and in less than 2 weeks, they're walking around the house using a walker. Now, that's not a cure, but the difference between being in a wheelchair and being helpless and being able to move around under your own steam and go and get a little bit of flexibility and go out in the yard, it's a huge difference. And I've seen this now for 41 years of professional experience and observation. I'm just happy to share that with people. It's just a rush.
I appreciate your enthusiasm so much, and Carolyn is so similar. You guys just have such a similar vibe because her passion is committed to the same information, sharing and also providing resources and making it all free and allowing people to have their experience. And then, of course, she just took it one step further by coming up with some solutions in her own formulas. But, you know, she's been at this for a long time as well. Now, I want to ask you because we have a lot of new listeners every single week, and they are doing exactly what you're recommending. They are taking their power. They're taking charge of their health, and they're stumbling into our circle through Dr. Dean, through the Magnesium Miracle, or other ways that they're finding out about her work, and they're starting to sort things out for themselves, and they may not know who is Abram Hoffer, why is he important, why was he your mentor, and what is orthomolecular medicine. So take a minute and tell us about that. All
righty. The simplest way to look at orthomolecular medicine is to use Dr. Hoffer's own phrase and call it megavitamin therapy. Now, orthomolecular medicine is actually more than that, but that's a good place to begin. Orthomolecular medicine uses vitamins and other nutrients that are natural to the body, but in large amounts. The idea is that when the body is sick, you're not dealing with a nutrient deficiency. When the body is sick, chronically sick in particular, you're dealing with a nutrient dependency. And Dr. Abram Hoffer was one of the very first physicians in the early 1950s to guess, it was a guess, that maybe nutrition could cure disease. Now, his background, he was born just over 100 years ago in November of 1917 in Saskatchewan, in the middle of nowhere, on a prairie. He went to a one-room schoolhouse. He herded cattle as a young man. And he went on to get a Ph.D. in biochemistry. Specifically, at the time it was called agricultural biochemistry. We would now call it vitamin biochemistry. And then he went on to get a medical doctor's degree after that and then become board certified as a psychiatrist. Now, Dr. Hoffer was curious, which is the most important thing for anyone, but especially a physician. You have to have intellectual curiosity. When a patient says, this helps me, a doctor should say, really? And look into it. If a patient says, I think this might help me, a doctor should say, you know, let's give it a therapeutic trial. Let's see if it works. You don't need a doctor that's a naturopath necessarily. If you can find one, that's best. If you can find an orthomolecular practitioner, that's ideal. But if you can't, you can simply work with your own doctor if your doctor will treat you as an adult. You just need a workable doctor, one that will let you apply this information. Dr. Hoffer has given us evidence that this actually works. So here he is in a hospital. He was actually director of research for the province of Saskatchewan, and he was seeing a lot of patients that were hospitalized with schizophrenia. Now, when food was fortified with niacin and the other B vitamins, roughly half of the people that were hospitalized for schizophrenia went home well. This is because they were suffering from pellagra. And pellagra, which is a very severe deficiency of vitamin D3, has the symptoms of diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and death. So this is why a lot of schizophrenics were actually cured by simply getting low doses of niacin and B vitamins in enriched food. But what about the half that was still in the hospital? Dr. Hoffer thought maybe they need more. Maybe they need more vitamins. He worked with men that had been prisoners of war during World War II. And when they came out of the prison camps, not only did they need good food and nutrition, not only did they need supplements of vitamins, but they needed massive amounts of vitamins for the rest of their life in order to be well. They had a nutrient dependency. So Abram just thought, well, let's try it on the schizophrenic. And they did. They gave niacin. This was before it was even available in capsules or tablets. They actually had to get powder and find a way to get it down. And they gave niacin, and people were getting better. So Abram Hoffer and Dr. Humphrey Osmond and several other really wonderful researchers did double-blind, placebo-controlled studies in the early 1950s, showing that niacin was a good therapy for schizophrenia. This is Dr. Hoffer's major claim to fame. And later, that would lead to another rather famous moment in health history, when around 1965 or so, a very eminent scientist, the only winner of 2 unshared Nobel Prizes in history, Linus Pauling, was visiting a friend's house and on the coffee table saw a book written by Abram Hoffer, How to Live with Schizophrenia. Pauling picked it up and didn't put it down until the sun came up. He read it that night, never went to bed, and that's when Dr. Pauling decided at the age of 65 or 66 that he was not going to retire after all. And he went into promoting and studying and teaching us about vitamins. So it was Abram Hoffer who actually stimulated Pauling's interest in vitamin therapy. This is how influential Dr. Hoffer was, and I'm very honored to have had him as my mentor. What a brilliant man. One of his great quotes was, "Drugs make a well person sick. Why would they make a sick person well?"
That's very good. I like that. Yeah, it makes total sense, doesn't it? When absolutely. And then let me also, Carolyn, do you have anything you want to chime in with?
I debated, Andrew, whether or not to ask this, but you're right there, and I think it's come through on some of our email questions, because I talk about using vitamin C complex, and I just want you to give me your take on your research and reading about ascorbic acid versus the whole vitamin C molecule. And if perhaps all the studies have been done on ascorbic acid for the orthomolecular medical research. But I just wondered what your take was on the difference.
Well, what I suggest to people, just as a concise answer, is you need the food factors that are in foods that contain vitamin C. You need the things in fruits and vegetables. You need the oranges. You need the bioflavonoids. You need that white pulpy stuff, the lime, the lemon, the orange, that inner material. You need the food factors in food that work well with vitamin C. This is one of the many reasons why you should eat fruits and vegetables. Plus, they're healthy and they taste good. There's so many reasons. But if we take a look at animals, most animals make their own vitamin C. They make ascorbic acid. I don't think nature could be that wrong for this many millions of years. Humans, guinea pigs, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, and also fruit bats and a few other animals cannot make their own vitamin C. So they have to eat that. In order to make vitamin C, you need a series of 4 enzymes to convert glucose, C6H12O6, down into ascorbic acid, which is C6H8O6. And it also has to be left-handed. Isn't that interesting? The body, for instance, prefers right-handed vitamin E, the natural form, but it wants left-handed ascorbic acid. And this is exactly what animals manufacture. They make levoascorbic acid, C6H8O6. That's what all animals manufacture. And this means that that molecule is vitamin C. But it would be an error to say that that's enough, because that destroys the whole concept of what a supplement is. A supplement's supposed to help you, but you still have to have a good diet. Now, in America, people just want to take the pill and eat a lot of junk food, and you can't do that. You're not going to fool anybody that way. You try to fool your body, and you're going to get sick. It just won't work. Try to win an argument with your body, and you're toast. So the secret is, in my opinion, to have lots of good foods that contain all the food factors. And because the amount of ascorbic acid is so low in processed and stored foods, we need more of that. And in sickness, we need still more. So to me, there's no conflict. You need the whole enchilada.
Yeah.
It just so happens that ascorbic acid is deficient in the very fruits that are high in all those other factors. So you do both. I tell people, take the vitamin C and also eat right. And that makes me unpopular pretty much everywhere.
Right. Yeah, perfect answer. And that's what we say to our folks is the nutrients aren't in the food anymore. And that would be my next question. So ascorbic acid is also deficient in our foods today. So very good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And not only that, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. It's bad enough that people don't eat really good foods. But on top of that, they're taking all these medications, and they're sedentary, and they're using all of these drugs, and they're so far off. Here's an example. Dr. Hoffer used to work with children as well as adults. And when he worked with a child, he would lean over to the child and he'd say, "No junk." And Abram said there wasn't one kid who failed to understand what that meant. And if the child was slow to comply, Abram would cut a deal with him. He'd say, "Look, tell you what, you eat all good food Monday through Friday. And if your mom and dad say that you've been eating good food all week, Monday through Friday, nothing but good food, you can have all the junk food you want on Saturday." Abram called these junk food Saturdays. I know it sounds like I'm making this up, but this is exactly what he did. So the kid would garbage up on Saturday, be sick as a dog all day Sunday, and be back on the wagon on Monday.
Well, that's perfect because I must have gotten that. I call it the junk food experiment. I must have gotten that from Dr. Hoffer then, because that's what I would tell my kid patients. And yes, they learned their lesson, and it is a brilliant way to educate kids and parents about the dangers of junk food and how bad it is for our bodies. But when we continue to eat it day after day, our body kind of adapts, and we just think our low-grade feeling yucky is normal. And you don't know until you do your junk food day. But, yeah, thank you for that. That solves a mystery for me.
Yeah, you just don't know what a bath is like until you have one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And while we're on it, I might as well make that an Epsom salts bath.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, I just love telling people about that, because people look at you as if there's something complicated here. And the answer is, no, this is easy. You know how to take a bath. Epsom salts is inexpensive. Throw a cup of Epsom salts, sit down, read a book, and enjoy yourself. You relax. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel so much better. You're going to sleep better. Your mood's going to be better. The cramps are going to go away. Your blood pressure is going to come down. Really? Well, I don't know. Well, why don't you try it? You got 20 minutes? Take a bath. Take a bath.
So
President Ronald Reagan used to take a nap. You can take a bath.
Nap. I call it lying down therapy. So who was Hoffer's mentor, Andrew? Who was he reading and studying?
Well, that's a really good question. Abram, remember his time. He's coming out of a medical education in the 1930s. In fact, Abram said when he was in medical school during the Depression, maybe that was when he was getting his PhD, but he was in school at the time, and the word came down that they would have cut all the toilet paper rolls in half to save money.
Oh, my gosh.
I just thought I'd mention it. But Dr. Hoffer had a number of heroes. One of them was the man who's credited with discovering that pellagra was actually nutrient deficiency disease, and that was Goldberg. He was also very much a friend of William Kaufman, who I mentioned earlier. Kaufman was about Abrams' age. They were good friends. William Kaufman wrote a book in 1949 that's been out of print forever, but his widow was very kind and gave me permission to publish the full text of the book at my website, where you can read the whole book for nothing. It's called The Common Form of Joint Dysfunction. The Common Form of Joint Dysfunction from 1949 by William Kaufman. And he's using niacin, specifically niacinamide, which does not cause a flush, and other vitamins to cure osteo and rheumatoid arthritis. This man was doing this work way back in the 1940s. So Kaufman was definitely a friend and hero to Abram. Abram was very fond of Emanuel Tarascon, professor of medicine at the University of Birmingham Medical School. Wonderful man. I corresponded with Dr. Tarascon in later years, and he's just a delightful person. His wife said that he would always come to the phone. He never turned anyone down. He was always right there for people. What a wonderful, wonderful person Tarascon was. Linus Pauling, of course, was certainly a strong influence on Abram, and they wrote a book together on vitamin C and cancer. In fact, Pauling urged, practically demanded, that Abram write up his work from the 1,500 or so cancer patients that Abram had seen. Now, Abram was a psychiatrist, and everyone he got was on referral. But it just so happened that a number of his patients were fighting more than one thing. So those that were fighting cancer were getting better on the schizophrenia vitamin program. And Abram took notice of this, and they did a very thorough statistical analysis of it, which has a title that's half a paragraph long. This statistical analysis showed that there's no question that this diet was helping people. And Linus Pauling literally pushed Abram to publish that. So they were very close as well. Then there's Dr. Hugh Reardon, formerly of the now Reardon Clinic in Wichita. Hugh Reardon, also a psychiatrist, started using vitamin C intravenously for cancer back in the 1960s. Then there's Dr. Robert Cathcart, the orthopedic surgeon and vitamin physician in California. Oh, we could go on and on. Frederick Robert Klenner with vitamin C. Just a wonderful bunch of folks.
What about Dr. Humphrey, or if I use it, Dr. Humphrey Osmond in the LSA world? Did you have any information on that? Influence on
Well, I'm not an expert on Dr. Osmond, but I can tell you this. Abram and Humphrey were very good friends. They were very close, and they were very close collaborators. And they did all kinds of wonderful things. Abram spoke very, very highly of Dr. Osmond. Indeed, when Abram founded the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine, he and Dr. Osmond were co-editors.
Thank you.
That was my husband, Bob, Andrew.
Dr. Bob.
Dr. Bob.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, back to Ginny.
Now, one of the things that you've mentioned several times is niacin, and Dr. Dean has recently added niacin to RB formula. Talk a little bit about it, because I'm not sure that everybody who's listening this evening is familiar with it, and why you think it's so important to highlight that. You talked about the schizophrenia. What are there just daily overall health benefits that you would get from using niacin that we would get as we use our Realign formula, for example? And how much is a adequate dose, in your opinion?
Well, the RDA for niacin is somewhere around 18 milligrams a day. And Dr. Hoffer felt that people should be getting at least 250 milligrams a day, probably more. So the RDA is probably only 1/15 of a minimal amount. Most of his patients were taking gram-sized doses of niacin. Dr. Hoffer's most common prescription for a schizophrenic would be 3,000 milligrams a day of niacin divided into 3 1,000 milligram doses. There were some people who could do well on less. There were some people who needed considerably more. The one thing that your listeners are going to ask or experience is a niacin flush. If you take large doses of niacin, you will get warm. You'll feel like you're embarrassed or having a hot flash, or like you have a bit of a sunburn. Your skin will get kind of pink, and you might feel a little woozy, want to lie down for a couple of minutes. This is because it's a vasodilation. Niacin opens up the small blood vessels near the surface of the skin, and there's thousands of miles of these. You know, people forget that there's about 50,000 miles of blood vessels in your body, and quite a few of those are very, very tiny. And niacin will slightly open them up, and that throws the heat to the surface, and that's why you get warm. It's harmless, but for people that aren't used to it, it's a little weird. You can avoid the flush by either starting with very small amounts of niacin, like I describe at drself.com, and in Dr. Hoffer's and my book, Niacin, The Real Story. You can start with very small amounts of niacin, taking with food, and gradually increase, dividing the dose, and doing a workup to where you take the amount that makes you feel the best without being uncomfortable with the flush. Now, Dr. Hoffer, because he was working with people that were in immediate need and needed therapeutic intervention, he would tell them, take 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. You're going to flush, just handle it, and it'll go away in a couple of weeks. If you continue to take the niacin, the flush will pass. But it's that initial few days when the flush can be so discouraging that people will want something else. There is something else. You can use niacinamide, which does not cause a flush except in the most rare of instances. Or you can use inositol hexaniacinate, which again will not cause a flush except in the rarest of instances. You can also go to your doctor and get a prescription for a proprietary, patented form of niacin that's sustained release. But oddly enough, the number of side effects with the sustained release product is fairly high. So you have the fewest side effects with the form of niacin that causes the one big side effect. Isn't that funny? Niacin, which causes the flush, actually is the easiest to take long term. And once people get over the flush, they will experience this. Nevertheless, if the flush bothers you, you can take niacinamide or inositol hexaniacinate. Most supplement companies use niacinamide in their products because they don't want people to have the flush and complain. They're all vitamin B3. The difference is niacin will lower LDL, lower triglycerides, and raise HDL. And it does this better than any drug on the market, and I mean any drug. Niacin is that good. The past president of the American College of Cardiology said in the New York Times not too many years ago, niacin is really it, nothing else comes close. So niacin will improve your blood lipids. Niacinamide will not. Inositol hexaniacinate will, but you have to take more of it. Niacin is useful against schizophrenia and other forms of mental illness, including obsessive-compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, ADHD, panic attacks, depression, anxiety, and schizoaffective disorder, psychosis. Niacin is good for that. And you can also use niacinamide as well for the mental issues. And I mentioned earlier, niacinamide was used by Dr. Kaufman against arthritis. You can also use niacin. Why did Dr. Kaufman use niacinamide? You want to guess?
The flushing.
Yeah. Dr. Kaufman didn't like the flush, so he didn't want his patients to have to experience it. What a nice guy. So niacinamide is a no-flush form of niacin. But again, if you want lipid benefits, you have to use something other than niacinamide. Niacin is vitamin B3. It is absorbed unbelievably well. you try a little bit in an empty stomach, and you'll flush within a few minutes, and you'll see how well absorbed it is. You're not going to have your blood vessels slightly open up and get warm in a matter of 15 or 20 minutes, possibly less. Chew the tablet and take it with some warm liquid. You'll flush within literally a couple of minutes. Now, that means that had to have been absorbed. Niacin is the smallest of all vitamins. It's smaller than glucose. And heaven knows glucose is pretty easily absorbed, isn't it? So niacin is actually smaller than glucose. It's the smallest vitamin. There is no absorption issue, in case anyone tries to tell you that. You just can't miss. Niacin is absorbed very easily. People would say to Dr. Hoffer, well, is it safe if I take all that niacin? And Abram would say, well, if you take all that niacin, you're going to live longer. Is that a problem for you?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, that's the number one side effect.
Yeah, my reason for prescribing some people with niacin is so they can give it to their family who will stop laughing at their mom for going through menopause hot flashes.
Well, that's a very nice way to think about it. When my daughter, who was I raised my kids without meat. They had plenty of protein. They had eggs, and they had aged cheeses and yogurt and whole grains and beans and lots of good stuff and tofu. But I raised my kids without any meat. I figured when they asked for it, I'd give them some. So my daughter was 8 years old, and she wanted some hot dogs. So we went over to the store, and I bought the cheapest frankfurters I could. I got her 3 pounds of USDA investigated frankfurters, and I let her have all she wanted, and that took care of that problem. So, Carolyn, I do understand what you're saying. There's a way that you can make this a social event and actually show families that how they're feeling is okay. Their fears, their concerns, their confusion is okay. And there's a way out. Just try it. Right. See how you feel. It was Dr. Richard Passwater, a wonderful fellow. I've been reading Dick's books for years. His book, Super Nutrition, was one of the first real health nut books I ever read, way back in the 70s. And Dick Passwater said, the thing to do with vitamins is to try them. Try taking some vitamins and see if you feel better. If you feel better, try taking some more. If you feel better still, try taking some more. And if you take more and you don't feel any better, or if you feel a little worse, go back down to the amount that gave you the most results for the least dose. There you go.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Right.
Very good. Sounds like you could be working in customer service with us, right, Carolyn? Yeah, that's exactly what Carolyn says, yeah.
Well, you tell people the truth, and as Mark Twain says, it'll gratify some and astonish the rest. You just tell them the truth.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Yeah, go ahead, Ginny, because we are coming up to the top of the hour, and we haven't even got to our questions.
Right. We've got questions, and I want to give people the opportunity to call in and talk with you at 602-666-6027. If you're on the phone and you did have a question, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad now so I can put you on the phone. But also I want to ask these questions that were written in, and one of them you alluded to a little bit before about niacin and its absorption, and this person writes in, I've listened to you many times and I've learned a lot. I always enjoy your sense of humor. I know you take vitamins. Do you separate them and take them at different times due to the competition for absorption? And I'll put in brackets there, even more importantly, do you think there is competition for absorption?
Basically, no. There are some exceptions. One thing I learned from Carolyn is to take your magnesium between meals or on an empty stomach. There are some times where you definitely can tweak it and make it better. But as far as vitamins go, vitamins and foods go together very well. There is not an absorption issue with the rarest exceptions. There are some people who need to do this or that or the other thing, certain medical conditions, certain digestive issues. But basically, consider this. If you take your intestines and squash them out flat and get all the little nooks and crannies and iron them out, all the little villi, and if you completely flatten out your intestinal area, the absorptive area of your intestine is half the size of a regulation basketball court. You are designed to absorb stuff, and that's how we got here. We have a digestive tract that's over 20 feet long, nearly 25 in a fairly tall person. You are designed to absorb. So what's probably stopping your absorption is junk food, fake food, and too much food, perhaps. And the one thing that really messes up digestion is that everybody acknowledges once you bring it up, but nobody seems to be listening to at the doctor's office, too darn many antibiotics. Antibiotics kill off your good bacteria, and you need those little guys. I was a dairyman many years ago. I used to milk 120 cows twice a day. You know, there's a job for you. And one thing you notice about cows is that they not only eat, they not only have a four-chambered stomach, but they burp up their food and sit there and they chew it again. This is to give the bacteria a chance to break down their food for them. Well, when you have antibiotics, you're going to kill those bacteria right off. You need to keep in mind that nature knows what it's doing. You chew your food well, you eat whole, unprocessed foods, and you make mealtime pleasant. Turn off the stupid television, socialize with your family, and you're going to have better health. Grandma was right. Chew your food and have a nice conversation and eat your greens.
Oh, very Okay, here's another question that's come in. Though my hepatitis C was cured 2 years ago, I'm left with stage 2 fibrosis. I've read that high-dose niacin is contraindicated for those with liver disease. Is this true? I would love to hear your opinion.
Well, I'm not a physician, and I'm certainly not a specialist in this area, but I will give you information from a person who I consider to be a specialist in the area, and that would be William B. Parsons, Jr. of the Mayo Clinic. Dr. Parsons was America's greatest niacin researcher, second only to Canada's Dr. Abram Hoffer. Parsons made this very, very clear, and here's what he said. He said, niacin taken regularly in high doses may cause a raise in liver enzymes. These used to be called liver function tests, but they're now properly called liver enzyme tests. Your liver enzymes will go up often if you take a lot of niacin. And that is a sign, said Parsons, of liver activity. It is not a sign of liver pathology. In addition to that, Dr. Hoffer would give vitamin C along with the niacin, and people who take high doses of niacin should work with their doctor and have routine tests just to make sure everything's hunky-dory. In our family, we occasionally have our liver enzymes checked, and they're fine. One member of my family has slightly elevated liver enzymes, but it's exactly what Dr. Parsons says. It's a little bit over normal, but not very much. And if that increase in liver enzymes is very modest, 10, maybe 15%, there's just nothing to worry about.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. You've been such a delightful guest. We've had so many great comments on the chat line here that you haven't gotten a chance to read possibly or listen to, but so many of our regular listeners are familiar with your work. They're very much in gratitude for everything that you've done and all that you've contributed, and they love your resources and everything that you've shared today. What else would you like to say to our audience, knowing that they're very well educated by Dr. Dean, always open to new possibilities, and always looking for ways to expand and accelerate their health?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is that they pop into my Facebook page. I am the Mega Vitamin Man on Facebook, and you'll have some fun there because we put up new posts regularly and people have discussions, and that's lots of fun. So the Mega Vitamin Man on Facebook. The other is if you're trying to convince your family to do a better job with vitamins, they might want to take in that vitamin movie. Not everybody will read a medical paper. Not everybody will read a book. Quite frankly, not everybody will read an email. But people do like to watch TV, and they do like to watch movies. So that vitamin movie is a good way to educate those in your family and your friendship circle that you want to motivate. I'd also like to mention that my website, dryourself.com, has a lot of stuff there, a lot of material, a lot of papers by Dr. Hoffer. And you can learn more about Dr. Hoffer and his work right there without even having to buy a book. Obviously, my books are for sale, and I love it when people buy them. But I want to remind people that with the access to the website, you can get a tremendous amount of information completely free of charge. And they might want to subscribe to the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service. It's free by email, peer-reviewed, and non-commercial. The Orthomolecular Medicine News Service has been published for 14 years now. We had over 200 press releases, one of which was finally picked up by the Chicago Tribune a month and a half ago. It only took 13 years.
That's outstanding. Yeah, outstanding. Well, you've just been such a gracious and generous guest. Thank you so much. Carolyn, your parting words this evening?
Thank you, Andrew. We love you.
Oh,
we love you. There you go.
Well, I want to thank you so much. Carolyn, I just think it's great, the energy that you bring, and you've been a personal help to me, and you've been a guiding light for my daughter, Helen, and we just want you to know how much we appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and mahalo and aloha.
Okay.
Wonderful. All right, everybody, we'll be back with our...
Downstairs and worlds disappear. You can go down, step on the rooftop, and you open the door and take a step, and you go, I'm on the rooftop. Wait a minute, I better pay attention. So that becomes a fun thing. So that's why we have to come back and say this, relax and allow, soften it up, get your foot off the gas, don't slam on the brakes, just let it coast where you want it to go. Soften, be easy about all this, and stop making a great big huge thing out of great big nothingnesses, because the nothingnesses are serving you very well. You like this blissful place of not caring, because now you care so much about everything that you've got yourself in a position where you don't really care about anything. Good. It's wonderful. Thank you. We are happily, easily ready for more in your experience.
AchieveRadio.com.
Here we go now. Go to the Carolyn. Here we go now. Here we go now. The wellness scene with Dr. D. Here we go now. Here we go now. Go to the Carolyn. The wellness scene with Dr. D.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Hour 2. Here we go now with Dr. Dean. Wow, Carolyn, you know the coolest people, don't you now?
I know. It's awesome having this doctor-to-doctor series, so I can meet up with them, and they can say nice things about me, and I can say nice things about them. Giving each other a forum, and really just taking some time, which I never really get around to just feeling of, what is it, feeling affirmation, confirmation, really showing the audience that we have how many resources. I'm just stumbling here because I'm looking at my notes that I made when Andrew was on, and this list of all these doctors, Abram Hoffer's heroes, they're all out there, and they've all been ignored. Think of that. All these people have been ignored. The Orthomolecular News Service with its hundreds of press releases, once it was picked up by some newspaper, once.
Right.
It's just scary how how we must continue on and, have our joyful, brave front in the face of this abuse and and loss of our health, because nobody's listening in the media, in the university level. The only people listening are the people who get desperate enough to do some research and try to find reliable sources. It's quite a journey, but then when you get there, you find that, yes, you just change your diet, take a few nutrients, and you can feel better. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nancy says it feels like an hour is not long enough for these doctor-to-doctor programs. Is it possible to consider extending it into the second hour? But, some of these, our guests are only available for an hour. That's what they're used to being, quote-unquote, booked into. And so, last time we were able to have Barbara on for 2 hours, and that was fantastic. And we certainly asked. But we are not, compensating anybody. So we just have to be humble and receive whatever generous gift they want to impart to us. And it is fun to have different people come in and share their ideas and also their angles, their experiences. Of course, I think what was so great about Andrew Saul is just that his lifelong commitment, Carolyn, mirrors yours so much of, getting into it for his own personal reasons. His spawned by children use was just your own natural, and what he said, the intellectual curiosity that a doctor has to have. And this is, one of the things that I admire so much about you is your natural curiosity and your intellect combined have brought us all here to not only have the benefit of your research and your information, but also the formulas, which are extraordinary. And it was funny because Shane was saying earlier, can you have Dr. Dean and, Andrew talk about niacin because it's not in the realigned formula, and I'm wondering, why is Dr. Dean leaving it out if it's so important, kind of the implication there. And it's like, oh, no, it's there now. Everything's unfolding. Everything's evolving. The formulas are evolving, as we all do, and as we build momentum, together as a community of subscribers and a group of people who are pursuing this passionately and determined to live well and feel good.
Right. Now that brings up the point that Andrew made about Hoffer and megavitamin therapy. Hoffer, as a medical doctor, wanted to do therapeutic nutrients, and he said that he had to look at nutrient dependency requiring megavitamin therapy rather than what we're looking at is nutrient deficiency. And I think what we've created is nutrients that will be so well absorbed that you don't have to go to mega amounts to treat with these nutrients as if they were drugs. So I've made that point many times that with the combination of our minerals and the B vitamins being methylated and food-based and now covering all the B vitamins and our detoxification of the amino acids that are in Realign, we've got an unbeatable formula where people can go ahead and take high doses of ascorbic acid or high doses of vitamin B3. I don't mind that, but I don't know if it's really necessary. We do get questions where people want to speed things up. Can I take this? I think last week we had a question about DHEA and a follow-up from that person who said that the DHEA did help her kind of jumpstart her hormones. And I only recommended in my practice DHEA, pregnenolone, for maximum 3 months just to get the jump start. But it's only been 7-8 years. I haven't had to think about using DHEA as another nutrient or a hormone precursor actually to offer to people. And the reason that I told this person is, well, in Norm Seeley's work, Dr. Norm Shealy, I should say, he felt that transdermal magnesium that he was working with stimulated the DHEA receptors in the skin. And what do we do when people say, well, I can't, if I take more Remag liquid, I get the laxative effect, or I just don't like the taste, I can't seem to take enough. We say slather yourself with Remag lotion. And I'm sure we are utilizing the transdermal effect on the DHEA receptors if we can be assured that Dr. Shealy's research is valid. There's another thing that has to be studied. So it is quite fascinating. I sound like I'm saying we cover everything with our nutrients, and we do. Maybe 98% of the people who take our products, they get the benefits, and there probably is a percentage of people who kind of walk away and they want things faster, or they want to try so many other things. But we're at the place now in the supplement market where it's a billions of dollars industry. We really don't know where a lot of these nutrients are coming from. When I look at the sourcing of these products, of the amino acids, people are saying, well, I'm taking extra amino acids. Well, they're synthetic. A lot of these nutrients now are synthetic, and I'd rather stay away from them, just work with nutrients that we know we're testing with this and getting our certificate of analysis and following all the FDA guidelines. So it is difficult to go out there on the internet and find your, quote, cure. Anyway, I'm kind of running around in circles here. I guess I'm saying to people, if you want to take high-dose ascorbic acid and B3, and as Andrew said, take a little bit, take some more, see if it helps you. That's how you have to treat every nutrient you take. You have to start low and go slow and see if you feel better. So there.
Absolutely, and that's what we say too. And you have always said from the beginning of time that I've known you is if you're taking something and you don't think you're getting better, stop taking it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give it a couple of months, and as people on the Remag, Remite, Realign have proven to themselves, when they take them, they feel different. They feel better. It works better than other minerals, other magnesiums, and then you know what your body, how your body is supposed to respond when you take something that's good for you. You feel better. So yeah,
absolutely.
Get used to that. Yep.
That's right.
So what
what
shall we do now?
Well, we should take some phone calls from people who want to chitty-chat.
Okay, doke.
So we'll go to the phones, 602-666-6027. Is the phone number this evening if you're on the line, or if you want to call in and talk with Dr. Dean, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad. We've got several calls lined up here for you, Dr. Dean. Please just hang in. Everybody will get a very nice amount of attention from Dr. Dean. She's very generous with her time on the phone. So we'll start in the great state of New Mexico. How wonderful. Area code 505. You're on the line with Dr. Dean. If you could give us your name and then state your question or comment.
Hi, Dr. Dean. My name is Kelly. And I feel like I'm starstruck talking to you. This is so exciting. I have several questions.
Thank you.
One of them, I got my husband on your Remag recently and your Remite because he had a thyroid nodule that he had to have removed because it was so large, and we tried everything to get rid of it. And they ended up taking half of his thyroid out. And the doctor wanted him on levothyroxine for his heart health. And so I asked him to go on Remag and Remite to see if he can't wean off of that. And he can't stand the taste so much he wants to just drink it all, in a small amount of water first thing in the morning, and then drink water throughout the day. And it does say that that's okay on the bottle, but really, talk me into convincing him to drink it throughout the day, because I know it's probably good for absorption.
Right, yeah, you don't overload your cells and waste it. It's mainly the waste factor. So, I mean, it's okay to take it all at once, but is it both that he finds yucky, or which one is worse?
Well, honestly, I've never had, he did the Remag the first week by itself, and he hated that, and then I added the Remite, and he hated it worse.
Okay. Well, if he's supporting his thyroid, it's mostly the Remite. The Remag is going to help too, but it's not like he's treating atrial fibrillation or something like that. And we're not using these minerals. I shouldn't say we're treating. We're treating a magnesium and mineral deficiency. So I think he could go ahead and take it all at once. He's just kind of wasting it. I know I take my, actually it's just half a teaspoon twice a day of the Remag and Remite, and I'll put half a teaspoon of each and a half a teaspoon of lemon juice concentrate in a glass of water, and it just tastes like lemonade. So there are ways around it. You can put it in a smoothie, but if he just wants to get it down and over with, in his situation, I would say that's just fine.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. And my next question is, do you still, I have heard you say recently that you still support the product Blue Ice Royal, fermented cod liver oil and butter oil. There have been some things circulating that are saying that it's not, and I don't know where those sources really are coming from, but I just wanted to make sure that
Sure,
yeah.
Right, of course we are. It's a real shame that people can put things on the Internet and they'll be there forever. I've used Blue Ice Royal for many years before I decided to carry it. I know the producer of it. We've had discussions. There's everything about Blue Ice Royal is quite valid and supported by research and by testings. And actually, I don't know when, but because people ask this particular question every week or so, we are going to have the manufacturer of the product on the show for maybe just a 15, 20-minute Q&A session.
Oh, that's great. Well,
so that'd be helpful.
Yeah, my son has been on it for years, and so have we, and I just wanted to make sure it was still great, and I trust your opinion, and so we'll go forward and continue taking it.
Yeah. A question did come up recently about Blue Ice Royal on our mailbag. Let me just address that while you're on, too, Kelly. Okay. What this person asked, she said, I'm convinced about the quality of Blue Ice Royal. I'm currently taking the supplement precisely because Dr. Dean recommends it. However, my physician in Singapore said that in general, cod liver oil has a very high level of vitamin A, which my physician considers to be too high. So I'm told not to take cod liver oil, regardless of brand, whereas Dr. Dean recommends it. Since I highly regard Dr. Dean's opinion, I'd like to know what her opinion of this is. So I answered by email. Here are the facts that your doctor is not taking into consideration. The RDA for vitamin A is 3,000 units. Cod liver oil, 1 teaspoon, has 4,300 units of vitamin A. I took a teaspoon of cod liver oil my whole growing up, and most kids did in my generation. Blue Ice Royal, 1 capsule is 750 milligrams of product, perhaps half of which is cod liver oil. The other half is butter oil. So that's about 350 milligrams of cod liver oil. 1 teaspoon equals 5,687 milligrams. So 350 milligrams in a capsule of blue ice oil is 1/16 of a teaspoon. Doing the math, there may be only 270 units of vitamin A in blue ice oil. And then I gave my little quippy sarcasm. Please ask your doctor if you should stop eating carrots because one medium carrot has 10,000 units of vitamin A.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
really
Now
cool.
I know animal vitamin A is different from food-based vitamin A, but there's still, 10,000 compared to 270.
Yeah.
So, I just say blue ice oil is quite wonderful, and you should keep taking it. And we'll have the maker of the product on the show soon. So she wrote back from Singapore. What a wonderful, personal, extremely helpful, and even funny reply.
Yes,
So
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Could
did you have another question? Yes, go ahead.
If you don't mind. Okay, my son was just crazy drinking just gobs of milk, and I finally added up all the milligrams of calcium in it, and I told him that it was ridiculous and he needed to cut back. And then a dear friend of mine who's a registered dietitian suggested the same thing. Even for his athletic performance, it would help. And so I've been making him take I know you're familiar with the Jigsaw magnesium. If I can get him taking the liquid, I know that's better. But he has cut down on the milk. And I was just scared for him, for his bones and stuff, before knowing that he had such an overabundance of calcium. How long does it take for sort of that daily dose to work out of your system and to move on?
Well, if he's taking magnesium, we don't know. The bone doctors don't even consider what you're talking about. And but I would think in a young person, it's not going to be a problem. But if he had a problem with the calcium he was getting in his diet, then he would have had a lot of leg cramps and a lot spasms and symptoms. So if he didn't have symptoms, then his body was dealing with it. But the magnesium is definitely going to help. But what you could do is buy almonds or get macadamia nuts or cashews and make nut milk for him.
Yes, we converted to nut milk. He loves it.
Yeah, okay, good. And you just watch the commercial brands because most of them are heavily sugared.
Right, and they have all those other fillers in them. So we're being as careful as we can. So, but it's also just a real battle with the 16-year-old boy. So I'm doing everything I can to get him on board. So thank you so much, Dr. Dean. And I love Andrew Saul. I'm so happy you had him on. I just think he's wonderful, and I've followed him for years also. But anyway, I have your book. I give it away. I give your book away regularly.
Good.
Thank you for everything.
Well, there's one thing more, Kelly, for your son, and I don't know if he'll go there, but our Remag lotion that you can put on as a skin cream all over the body can give you measurable levels of magnesium, so that's another thing he can do.
I bought him a bottle. He has it in his room, and he puts it on every night after his shower when he gets home from track or basketball.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very good.
He's a Carolyn Dean baby.
Thank
you.
That's wonderful. Okay,
Bye-bye.
Kelly, thank you for calling.
Okay.
Good questions.
Right. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, excellent. Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on Achieve Radio. Let's go out to Colorado, the great state of Colorado, area code 3R3. You're on the line with Dr. Dean. If you could state your name and then ask your question or comment.
Hi, this is Michael from Boulder, Colorado.
Hi, Michael.
Thanks for taking my call. Let's see. I think my situation's pretty complex. I think I'm going to send you an email, but I had some more general questions that I thought would be nice to ask you, and also just to have an introduction. I've had some chronic digestive issues for years, and very similar to you, I know I've been magnesium deficient for forever, but 100 milligrams is about all I could tolerate. The The only time I've been able to get it up is there's been a few times where I did, some kind of like parasite product, and then all of a sudden I got constipation, and I was able to up my magnesium, and maybe for like a few months or so, and then it'd go back down. So there's been this long-term dysbiosis that seems to mess up my ability to take much. So I'm so excited.
Have you tried? Oh, you're excited. I was going to say, have you tried our Remag lotion? Because you can get around the digestive issues with that.
Well, no, I'm up. Well, now I've been taking the Remag for almost 6 weeks, and I'm up to 3 teaspoons.
Ooh.
And which is like, really? Is this really happening? So anyway, so I'm excited about that, and I got the Remite about 2.5 weeks ago, and I'm up to a teaspoon. With being kind of chronically ill for so long, and then that being compounded with a spinal cord injury 5 years ago.
Did we lose you, Michael?
No, I'm here. It's still pretty emotional, the whole thing.
I get it. I understand. Yeah.
So things have really gotten pretty desperate.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, with the people you've worked with who, are dealing with really big chronic stuff, how long, I know I'm getting detox kind of effects and things like that. Like I took a quarter teaspoon, an hour ago, and I tightened up. And then, over the next, that keeps happening. I also started, I don't know if you know, most people would know unless they know someone who's quadriplegic, but I don't sweat. But I started sweating. I started sweating 6 weeks ago.
Wow. Well, like you said, Michael, it's complex and chronic, but I know we have people who've had long-term magnesium deficiencies, and they've ended up with conditions like ankylosing spondylitis, and they've found that they've reversed. One young man, Joe, he had it for I think 30 plus years, and he just wasn't getting around anymore, and then he started riding his bicycle. Now, of course, with the spinal cord injury, I'm not trying to what I'm trying to do is let you know that they're very chronic conditions that can be fed by a magnesium and mineral deficiency, and what you're doing is just slowly building up your magnesium stores. But like you say, with the detox effects, you're going to be killing off yeast and having some yeast die off. You're going to be stimulating areas that have been numbed, areas that aren't numbed by the spinal cord injury, but just yet numbed from lack of magnesium, that are going to wake up and probably irritate you. So there's a timing issue. In my own case with my heart palpitations and leg cramps, it did take 1.5 years of Remag, and that was after I'd been on very low potency angstrom magnesium for years. So it does take time, but that's why we have customer service, so that you can write everything down like you were suggesting you were going to do anyway. Write everything down. They'll go over it, see what you require from their end, and then they'll send the email on to me to see what I have to add. So you'll be well taken care of.
So I'm curious, with your years of experience with people in kind of more my situation, and I know it can vary all over the place, but just kind of some, will you see people who go 3-4 months without noticing much before maybe they start noticing some positive benefits? Or, you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to get a sense of,
right.
I get magnesium is important, and I'm not going to stop for any reason at this point. But it's more like, how patient do I need to be?
Well, when you sit with either me or customer service, we say, well, how's your sleep? How's your, like the sweating part of things? And we go through maybe a few dozen possibilities of what could be shifting, and invariably something is shifting already within the first few weeks. It is kind of frustrating for people with such complex chronic conditions when they hear people saying from the first dose I started feeling the effects.
Exactly.
But, that I apologize for that. But what we do know is sometimes with people you have to almost have a 40 or 50% feeling better before you even recognize that you're feeling better. And if you say you're starting to sweat, that means a huge function in your body is starting to improve, and that's something that you just have to grab onto and say, every day in every way I'm getting a little better, and use that affirmation to guide you rather than saying, well, gosh, nothing's happening, because that's very frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
So if you sit on the phone with Ginny or Melody Rose or any one of our customer service, you will be sort of drawn out about what really is going on and how you can grab onto that as a means of letting, I guess, maybe your left brain, your intellectual brain, know that things are improving.
Yeah. Can you think of any reason why at this stage where, I'm just getting started that I am. In the afternoons, it seems like it's almost like my thyroid's getting turned off. And I go through a period of several hours where it's eased up a little bit, so I'm hopeful that I'm seeing a transition. But I think it was shortly after I started the Remag, 5, 6 o'clock, I'm starting to get really cold, and then it almost seems like my internal heater just shuts off. And then we're putting me in bed, and we're warming up blankets in the dryer and wrapping up my head, and then a couple hours later, I'm hot,
did you mean to, Michael? Did you mean to say after you started the Remite?
No, that happened immediately after starting Remag.
Well, magnesium is a temperature regulator, so it is trying to sort out your temperature regulation, and if you started sweating, that's the way people do balance their temperature regulation. So to me, it does sound like your body's trying to adjust and trying to reach a balance.
Yeah.
And especially, I take heart that you're saying that it's starting to feel a little better, but if you've been not sweating for decades and been magnesium deficient and your temperature regulation is all out of kilter, then it is going to take some time for it to adjust. And as long as it doesn't feel too harmful for you, then you just let your genius body take over.
Well, that is one that it's like, it's very much the tightrope of, this is pretty intense how cold I'm getting. Is this okay? And and I can justify it, but on another level, it's when you're in the middle of it, or when I'm in the middle of it, it's like, wow, this is pretty freaky how cold I'm getting. But then
right.
Like I said, come a couple hours later, I'm feeling fine, and then anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, it's that your body's trying to work it out, and I know people who they can get symptoms of a detox or a shift, and then they start worrying about it. And then if anxiety and panic are some of their magnesium deficiency symptoms, they can start panicking or getting anxious, and just adds to the whole merry-go-round.
Yeah.
So when even in the middle of that happening, if you can phone us and talk it through, and maybe we'll see if there's something that we can do. Like you say, you're warming yourself up and doing what you can do, but even I'll try to think about what else we can offer if you're in the midst of that. But I just pray that it's now turning around so that your body is getting more balanced.
Yeah. Now, I'm working with a kind of a health coach who's also a fan of your magnesium. And, previous to finding you, like just a couple months ago, I am one of the people who've been a fan of high-dose iodine, and it really helped me initially. I was on low-dose hydrocortisone. I was able to get off. And now my injury was 5 years ago, so this was pre-injury. Anyway, so I still take like 25 milligrams of iodine a day. This person said she was listening to one of your talks. I think it was the one you did for the Riordan Clinic. And she said you were talking about there's something in there, and I tried finding it in the talk, and I couldn't today, but there was something you were saying about the effect of magnesium and iodine and fluoride, and how there could be kind of an interesting dance going on. And she was suggesting that I might consider dropping the iodine way down low and just as an experiment to see what happens. That possibly, now that the magnesium's coming in, the iodine is just driving things too hard together. By itself, it was doable, but right now it might be too much. Does that make any sense from everything you know?
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point about the high dose iodine, because it if you read my Remite Recalcia book, I talk about the 9 minerals that support thyroid hormone production, and if you emphasize one of them, like emphasizing iodine, you drive the reaction to create a downstream product that then can build up if you don't have the other minerals on board, like selenium and zinc and magnesium. So it always made sense to me about this high-dose iodine, that you're treating it like a drug and pushing reactions rather than letting the body take care of itself. But if you reduce your iodine, you have to do that slowly as well. You can't just stop it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But Michael, when you said you were on low-dose hydrocortisone and iodine before your spinal cord injury?
Yeah, I was. We don't want to get, my story is big and long, so I won't get way into it on you. But yeah, I was doing 15 milligrams of hydrocortisone for a number of years. I had when I got my mercury fillings out, I took a hit. I thought my dentist did all the right protections, and within a year I started getting chronic diarrhea, and then finally figured out, I thought I picked up a pathogen, and finally figured out that my body was having big problems with the high sulfur foods, which I've learned since is not uncommon with mercury poisoning. Anyway, now I'm wondering, how much is it that my body's been so magnesium deficient, that I haven't been able deal with all the toxins.
Right. Well, it's
Anyway.
okay. It's a story that, I mean, believe it or not, we've heard many times before from our customers. So, kind of take heart in that somewhat, that we've seen this. We'll support you. The nutrients that you're getting, everybody needs, but that's the absorption factor of our products that we really rely on to get people over these complex chronic conditions, because anybody who's been through all that you've been through, you've tried everything. I know you have. And what we know can happen is that with just going low and slow, using the nutrients that are absorbed well and make the body react, then you just continue that. And we keep intellectually, you can read about them, you can listen to testimonials. You have to sort of have a certain confidence about what you're doing, so that you're not always second guessing yourself. And I bring it back to magnesium over and over again. Yes, mercury can be detoxified with magnesium. Magnesium supports all the detox pathways in the liver, and if you don't have that, you build up toxins. The whole business of fluoride, magnesium will bind fluoride and take some of it out. Some of it will stay in, but then as the cells break down and are released, then the magnesium is eventually going to help take out the fluoride. So it's pretty impressive what it can do. I wish you would notice it more in your healing, but as I said, if you send us your history, we'll go over it.
I will.
And see where we can interject, because so I think that's enough for now. You okay?
Yes. Yeah, I am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's good to speak with you, and I'm glad you're still in there fighting the good fight. Right, Michael?
Fighting the good fight. I'm on the last few threads, so it's like, okay, let's take this one for a ride.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Exactly.
Thanks, Carolyn. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Michael. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here again. Carolyn, as I was listening to Michael, and I actually got a chance to talk with him for a few minutes last week. He called into customer service, and we did talk about, him getting the chills and also this activation of sweating. And I think that is the magnesium, the spark of life, bringing aliveness to his body. But the other thing, Carolyn, is it reminded me a little bit of Melody Rose. And the situations are different, because Michael does have a severe and debilitating spinal cord injury, and that's nothing to minimize. But Melody Rose, who works in customer service for us and has for many years, originally encountered Dr. Dean and got on the formulas being in a bedridden condition, having been electrocuted profoundly in 1999 and never having yet fully recovered, and is now completely recovered as a result of using the formulas and everything else like that. And it's been a long, arduous road for her. She's had to do lots of stuff. She's a great supporter of people who have complex situations and long histories, and hers is complex and long. But it can be done. And, even the recovery of just having the peace of mind, to know that your body will recover to the degree that it can, and that you can feel better and have a much better outlook. So I definitely encourage you to touch base with Melody Rose. You can just email her at support, SUPPORT, at rnareset.com, and she hears the radio show every Monday evening, of course, and she'll know what we're talking about, and she will also be willing to support you, Michael, to the degree that she can. So we have great people in customer service. Everybody's just awesome. And I just want to let people know who are tuning in right now, if you missed Andrew Saul in the first hour, because some people did, the show is recorded in an archive, and you just go to achieveradio.com, and you'll look for Dr. Carolyn Dean as the call host. And the archive is already posted. It's already up. So you can just go there after this show completes, and you can listen to Andrew Saul in the first hour. That's where it'll be located. Okay, Carolyn, what shall we do now?
Well, I have mailbag, and we haven't touched on any of my blogs for a long time. I don't even remember the last one we talked about, and I'm still putting out 2 a week. Do you have any idea what our last blog? I can't even find it in my notes.
Okay, let's see. I think I do know. Let me look here. Hold on just a sec. I've just got to go look and say. I think we did do the wow, why am I not seeing him here? Okay, there we go. Let's go to vitamin D and calcium fail to reduce fractures.
Okay, vitamin D and calcium. Okay, that was March 21st. And the more time passes between the vitamin D being promoted as the next super nutrient after calcium, the more time that passes, we're getting more information and about, well, is it really working? What's really going on? And the Natural Medicine Journal reviewed a JAMA paper, Journal of the American Medical Association paper, that analyzed 33 randomized clinical trials on the effects of vitamin D and calcium used together on fractures. The results were quite surprising to the public that's been led to believe that vitamin D is the next best thing to sliced bread. Oh, wait, bread is also out of favor now, isn't it? It seems like everything is being called into question these days. And what they found was no significant association of calcium or vitamin D with risk of hip fracture compared with placebo or no treatment. So they concluded that the use of supplements of calcium and vitamin D or both was not associated with a lower risk of fractures among older adults. These findings are opposite of what practitioners of all persuasions have been telling people to do to prevent fractures. And, of course, they don't go into why that doesn't work, and I just follow up talking about the necessity of magnesium and vitamin K2 for protecting your bones. It's a fairly long blog, a lot of information there. It's found at drcarolyndean.com. The next blog up from that then after the March 21st would have been the failure of the flu vaccine on March 25th, and it's a little late in the flu season. I should have gotten it out earlier, but I say my great quote here: insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over and expecting the outcome to change. So with the effectiveness of the flu vaccine at between 4 and 6%, people are still being dramatized into believing that the flu vaccine is going to protect them from the flu, and it really can't, and it doesn't. And people really should be aware of that and be prepared next year to be taking your complement formulas, taking your oscillococcinum. In my Future Health Now encyclopedia, I have all that listed, and if you just Google flu and my name, you'll probably find the whole excerpt from my Future Health Now encyclopedia. This next one, March 28th, do statin research for your doctor. A customer of ours said he was getting frustrated dealing with allopathic doctors in his Medicare group who wouldn't lower or stop his statin meds at his request. He found a young pharmacist who was willing to at least listen to him, and he wanted to present some information and studies to her relating to the statin issue. So in this blog, I write out what I sent to him, and I said, you can print up articles from these 3 sites for your doctor to put in your patient file, which will help support your doctor's decision to not give you statins. It's like a doctor, they're under the gun. They cannot tell people to get off statins or take them off because it's not the standard practice of medicine. The standard practice of medicine is anyone with a cholesterol of over 180 is supposed to be on a statin drug. And at drcarolyndean.com or just Google, what's the title, Do Statin Research for Your Doctor. I've got a website for a Danish medical doctor who dispels the myth of cholesterol as a cause of heart disease. I've got the Cholesterol Skeptic site where you can download articles, and I tell you again to read Dr. Malcolm Kendrick's book, The Great Cholesterol Con, and he's got an article, Cholesterol Lowering, The End of the Beginning, that you can print out. But seriously, if they have, your doctor has information on file that would support him or her allowing you to go off your statins, then you'll continue to be a patient under Medicare. I mean, what patients are afraid of is their doctor's going to fire them if they don't take the drugs. And then yesterday's blog was called 6 Teaspoons of Sugar a Day for Kids. And this is an article from a couple of years ago, a Medscape article, August 2016, titled, The American Health Association Says to Cap Added Sugars for Kids at 6 Teaspoons a Day. And I say, finally, the AHA is taking a stand on sugar, and I refer to my blog, A Sugar-Free Half-Century, what would have happened if we'd listened to the research back 50 years ago that sugar was damaging to the heart, if doctors would only step up and tell people to cut back on sugar. And just surveys about U.S. children gobbling up about 20 teaspoons of sugar a day. The AHA wants kids to only drink 1 8-ounce can of soda a week, and I say, dang, I'm sorry, AHA, but that ship has sailed. You only have to stand outside Costco and see the cartons of soda wheeled over to the family car to know that soda, not water, is the beverage of choice in the American household. So it's another sugar article, and people wrote into me, really being thankful that I wrote this blog to support a low-carb lifestyle. So that was a quick update where I'll make a note that we've done up to the sugar blog. So thank you, Ginny. Where do you want to go now?
Great stuff. Yeah, let's do our mailbag.
Okay. Well, actually, someone wrote me about the sugar blog, and basically just a nurse, actually, a Bachelor of Science nurse, and just being shocked about Americans eating 150 pounds per year of sugar, and the 56 names of sugar on food labels to hide the high amounts they are actually using. So that's pretty pretty scary. A testimonial here on Remag lotion. She says the lotion is a 5-star magnesium product. It's 5-star for glide, absorption, and effective delivery of magnesium. She says cancer patients would benefit greatly using it for moisturizing skin as well as delivery of magnesium, avoiding their torn-up GI tracts. And anxiety levels would drop, and the lotion is a great carrier of essential oils such as lavender for sleep and lowering their high anxiety. She says, I did the last 10 years in treating cancer patients and advising the use of hydration, lavender, and the most difficult was getting them enough magnesium. One of the products she used on the skin caused a lot of skin itching and irritation. She said this lotion will be perfect for them as well as anybody with IBS or GI issues. I'm using it on an energetic 6-year-old grandson and his 16-month-old sister for relaxation and sleep at night, and it sure helps. This next short one is from a pharmacist who says, I've been suffering with insomnia for 5 years, which led to anxiety and panic disorder. I'm a pharmacist, and I wasn't comfortable taking prescription meds with all the side effects involved. I thought to myself, I must be lacking a vitamin or mineral. I read Magnesium Miracle book, tried it, and I slept full 8 hours on my first night, and my anxiety, palpitations disappeared. I'm ecstatic with the results. I feel amazing, happy, and energetic. I'm addicted to magnesium. Thank you, thank you. I feel alive. And that reminds me of what Dr. Andrew Saul was saying. He said there's stats showing that 3/4 of doctors are taking nutrients, but they're not sharing that with their patients. Someone says Remag is the best, had heart flutters for some time, about 4 times a week. I would just be lying down relaxed and my heart flutter sometimes. My heart would flutter sometimes so much that I would get scared. After taking Remag for a month, I haven't had a flutter at all for a whole month. It also makes me sleep better. So that's someone with severe magnesium deficiency. We're not treating heart conditions. We're just solving a magnesium deficiency problem. This is a long one we won't have time for. Okay, here's a very interesting one from a customer. She says, here's a story for you. You could file it in stupid customer mistakes, as in stupid mistakes, not stupid customer. I am merely human. So that was all said by our customer. I'm 67, female, and have been taking Remag and Remite for 4 years. And when Recalcitrant came out, I added that. I used to have heart palpitations, but have kept them away with a maintenance dose. So happy. A month ago or so, I started feeling some heart pounding in the center of my chest, usually after lunch and through the early afternoon. I wondered what was up, and then I heard you on your radio show talking about vitamin D3 and how it can use up magnesium to assimilate it and cause a return of symptoms, and that 1,000 to 2,000 units were enough. I had heard from so many sources that 5,000 to 6,000 was what I should take, and I was using a liquid form. 1 drop is 1,000, and I was doing 5 to 6 drops. I didn't test my level because Medicare wouldn't pay for the test. Grrr. And she grrrs. And I just assumed I was low, living in Vermont, et cetera, et cetera. So I cut back to 1 to 2 drops and upped my magnesium, not much change, and then it got worse. Lots of pounding, more frequent, exercise-induced, et cetera. A lot of air coming up from my stomach, that when I could release it with a burp or just force it to dissipate, it would give some relief. That's a kind of a Valsalva maneuver where you can burp away some palpitations. I was at a loss as to what was causing it and what to do, since the only thing that had worked in the past, Remag, wasn't working. I read that palpitations aren't usually harmful, but geez, they felt horrible. So hard to ignore. Okay, so then she said, About the time, here's the stupid part, she says, about the time that the big increase in symptoms began, I had started taking a lymph cleanse tincture in a similar bottle as the D3. The dose was 30 drops. You can hear the pin drop. I know you know what she did. I had used that about a week, and then I realized that I had been using the wrong bottle, overdosing like to 40,000 IUs a day. Major duh. I can hear you say, Lord, suffering cats. I've given it about 2 weeks and now been off D3 completely. It only took a few days for the heart pounding to stop after I stopped the D3. This is a little embarrassing to tell, but at least it lends some credence to your premise about vitamin D3. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't heard your radio show. What if I'd gone to some doctor, naturopath or not? They would have had no clue that I was just poisoning myself and might have tried all kinds of things that wouldn't have worked. I'm so grateful for your wisdom and that I crossed paths with you that night and in general, and that something told me to look closer at the darn bottle. Isn't that amazing, Jenny? Golly.
That is really something. That is something.
Yeah.
And with that, we will definitely end the show. Carolyn, what a great show. We'll have next month on our Doctor to Doctor series, we are going to have
Dr. Christian Northrup. Ta-da!
Yeah, it's going to be fun to have Dr. Northrup here with us. So we'll see if we can get her to stay 2 hours. All right, Nancy? Listen, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Carolyn, great show. Thanks to all of our guests and contributors.
Good show, Ginny.
Good show, Ginny. Thank you, Ginny, Bob, and Bill.
Yay!
You've been listening to Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on AchieveRadio.com. Till next time, so long, and thanks for all the fish.
AchieveRadio.com.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.
Fear is fear. How do you know that you have fear? How do you know you're afraid of something? And if you are, how